Welcome to today's episode of Print to Pixel, the podcast where we talk to marketing leaders and technologists about how omnichannel marketing is revolutionizing the way direct mail and digital marketing are used together. My name is Dennis Kelly. I'm the CEO of Postalytics, the leading direct mail automation platform that makes direct mail marketing as easy as email. I'm excited today to speak with Derric Bakker of DickersonBakker on today's episode. Derric is the president of DickersonBakker. He leads a team of over 40 professionals serving more than 100 nonprofit organizations annually. He's a recognized expert in major gift development, having secured multi-million-dollar gifts and coached fundraisers nationwide. Derric also advises on strategy and organizational development, bringing unmatched expertise across the nonprofit sector. Derric, welcome to Print to Pixel.
It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, it's our pleasure. Super excited to have you today. Congrats on all the success and growth at DickersonBakker. You've got a unique background that has really, what it would appear, prepared you to lead this organization. And I'd love to explore that. So let's talk about some of the key influences in your career and some of the important things that have kind of led you to this role at DickersonBakker.
Yeah, I'm a quintessential accidental CEO. Never set out for this. Actually, when I went to school in college, I was pre-med. I was pursuing a path in medicine, and so I spent some time overseas at a mission hospital. My parents were missionaries in Africa, and spent a little time overseas in a hospital, and was like, body fluids. Ick. So it's like, okay, I got to find something different to do. And so I kind of transitioned a little late into the business side and got out of college and started just working an entry-level job in a bank. And bank had an investment branch. And I had a friend who was a friend through my church, actually. He was an attorney. And he was on a search committee of some organization that was trying to find a fundraiser, trying to hire a fundraiser. And so he's like, "You'd be good at that." The title was development director, which I had no idea which it was. And so he kind of, talked me into just coming and interviewing with him. And all of a sudden, I'm a development director. And I really, honestly, was as green as grass. I didn't know a thing about nonprofits. I didn't know a thing about, fundraising. But I did know someone who was a fundraiser, and he happened to be the fundraiser for kind of the missionary agency where my parents worked. And so I called him up, and I had gotten to know him a little bit because my folks had a medical emergency. And so I was involved with the mission board, getting them evacuated out, and somehow met this guy. And he said, "Oh, come spend some time with me." And so that turned out to be a turning point. That was a huge influence in my life because it really, I think I probably would have been like many other fundraisers have, quickly exited right after 12 to 18 months. But I really got connected with a mentor who, in hindsight, now I've been doing this for 40 years almost, right? And in hindsight, I realized that he was one of the best major gift fundraisers I've ever known or worked with. And I happened to just accidentally connect with him, and that really got me going in my career. I think it got me a good start in the industry, a good start, good understanding. He sent me to some trainings. Another real key influence was he sent me to Chicago to kind of learn at the feet of Jerry Panis, who he knew, who's kind of Jerry's passed away now, but he's kind of a legend in the industry, and learned a ton from Jerry and participated in a week-long intensive training with him, and then kind of signed up for some coaching and things. And so I worked for about 10 years for a couple of different organizations in Michigan, where we lived at the time, and in the industry. Did a capital campaign I was working for a healthcare organization at the time. We did a capital campaign, and at the end of that capital campaign, out of the blue, the guy who was our consultant, who owned the consulting firm, invited me to join their firm. It's like, "Hey, we're looking for somebody." And, all of a sudden, 10 years in as a fundraiser, I'm a consultant. And I just really, really enjoyed that. It was just a really good, that was my segue into consulting. And I did that for about 10 years. And then a couple of different transitions, and I was offered a partnership. But really, there were a couple of things happened in my personal life. My wife had, gone into medicine. So, right, I didn't end up a doctor, but at the end, she ended up a doctor, and kind of had this life changing moment where once she had finished all of her training and was drawing a 6-figure income and had benefits and all that sort of stuff, it's like, I'm not kind of the primary earner in this household at the moment. What do I want to do with my life? And that's really when I decided, I'm going to start my own gig. And so I started a firm at the time. It was Keystone Consulting, but really kind of with a plan of, I want to do what I love doing, which is consulting, but I want to do it my way, right? I want to focus on. I want to do it different. I want to take it in a little different direction than the firm I had been working with previously was going. And so it just took off. It just took off. And to me, I just feel blessed that that was in 2010, and so here we are, 15 years later, and we're 50 full-time staff, and it's just been fairly monumental. We did a deal early on after I got started, where I was just it was growing so fast. I was doing that just I was consultant by day, bookkeeper by night, webmaster on the weekends, all of this stuff. And we had a growing team. And Clark Dickerson, who I had met, who owned a company in Colorado, out of Denver, Colorado, had the business for about 25 years, was looking for succession. And so it was kind of perfect timing. And in 2012, we merged our companies together, and that's how we became Dickerson-Bakker. And I had a lot of stuff like fast growing, et cetera. And he had the stability of infrastructure and people, and so putting those together gave us the platform of stability where we could really kind of leap forward a little bit, and that I think was really instrumental now. And since then we've just been on a tear. For most of that time, we focused on major gift consulting and things related to major gift consulting. And we can talk a little bit more, but we went through a transition a couple of years ago, back in 21, 22, where we really decided, and I can talk more about that later, but we made a transition into direct response fundraising. I'll talk more about why, but it was a really significant addition to the firm, where we started a division focused on direct mail, direct response fundraising, which has taken off like crazy. And part of that is related to our philosophy, which we'll touch on, I think, later in the conversation. But that's
Excellent.
a little of my story.
Yeah, well, it's a great story, and it's common to a lot of leaders that I speak with that have had some kind of key moments in their lives where they happen to run across a person who ended up being a mentor, and it sounds like you've had a couple of those opportunities that really sort of set you on this path,
Yeah,
uh,
for sure.
which is amazing.
I think that's
And
one of the most important things to do if you're a new fundraiser starting out, is find a mentor, right? Convince your employer to even pay a little bit for coaching or something, but find a mentor. It's so instrumental. Most people who have a story of success in a fundraising career, somewhere in that story, they had a mentor to really help them to learn and grow and coach them.
Yeah, yeah, and it's true in every profession as well.
Yeah, it's
Certainly in
true.
the tech field, I've been fortunate enough to have several great mentors in my career, and there's nothing better than to get the focused attention of somebody who's really experienced and who cares about you, right? And that really grows and fosters a love for something. So that's a great story. Let's talk a little bit more about Dickerson-Bakker. You've got this great thriving company, and so the mission is, I think, a little bit different than some of the other fundraising firms that I see out there, where I think that Dickerson-Bakker's involved in a lot of different aspects of the operations of a nonprofit. So give us a little bit of insights as to, what is the secret sauce been? Why has the company taken off and grown so quickly? And and then what are the things that you focus on in your role
Right.
as president and CEO of the organization?
Yeah. So, I think it's interesting because we don't consider ourselves to be a fundraising company, even
Huh.
though we kind of are, right? In many
Yeah.
ways, we are a fundraising company. But what we're really about is coming alongside organizations and helping them grow and thrive and have a greater impact, right? And so, in many cases, that's fundraising. And in a lot of ways, I mean, fundraising is the thing that pays the bills, right? But there's a lot of other stuff that we do. And I've always said that success in any venture, but we'll talk about nonprofit in particular, is going to be is going to be an equation, right? It's never about just one thing. It's about a lot of different things. And so, what are some of those factors in that equation? Well, obviously, abundant resources is a really important factor in that equation. If you have an abundance of resources, it's going to open the doors to do a lot of things that you would not otherwise be able to do, that would not otherwise be possible. But another really key element, factor in that equation is talent, right? Having the right people in the right roles and being able to get the right talent and keep the talent. And so, when we were early on doing a lot of fundraising consulting, what became really apparent is that many clients, the issue is really centered on talent, having finding the right people, finding people, and finding folks that have those right mix of the skills for the job, the cultural fit with the organization, because that is important in nonprofit, and then the missional alignment with the organization, that they can, really kind of believe in what they're doing. And so that kind of led us into talent solutions. So we do a lot of recruitment. And of course, 50-60% of our recruitment is for fundraising staff, but not exclusively. A lot of times that leads to others. And so recruitment became a big part of what we do. And so we kind of have now four or five different key kind of things that we focus on as a company. And they kind of relate to that equation, right? So equation for success, I believe, is abundant resources, talented people, effective strategy, and really good messaging, right?
Mm.
So, and so you kind of put those four together, and that really reflects a lot of what we do. We focus in those areas. We're known for fundraising, of course, because that's right. That's kind of the biggest piece of what we do, and we have multiple divisions within the fundraising right side. So we do annual fundraising, which is we call fundraising solutions, which covers kind of the whole gamut. We also do capital campaign fundraising, and we have a grants solutions team for institutional fundraising. So all of those things, but really, I think the success behind our organization really boils down to, I think, one thing, and that is, for some reason, which I don't take credit for. I don't know if it's a divine intervention or what it is, but or just the right mix. We are magnetic to really talented people. We have been able to really build a team of really committed, really passionate, really talented people who are really applying those talents and those skills and that passion towards helping our clients achieve their vision.
Well, that is the key to success of any organization and in any line of work is finding really talented people and getting them super focused on a mission. And I think it makes perfect sense what you're saying, that fundraising is obviously the fuel that can help a nonprofit grow. But there's so many operational things, right, that can also be done to augment that growth.
Yeah,
And so the planning, the people part of it, the messaging, it all has to sort of fit together, right, in order for a nonprofit to be truly successful.
yeah, absolutely.
That's great. So, what are the types of customers you work with? Size, area of focus. I'm sure there's a range, but give us a sense of the sort of the general focus of your, we'll call it, ideal customer.
Yeah. So we because we do a lot of different things, we really cover a lot of different market spaces. I would say the vast majority of our clients tend to be kind of mid-sized, in that mid-sized range. We do serve a fair number of larger clients, and we do work with a reasonable number of smaller clients. Oftentimes, those are projects, but oftentimes, it's kind of the meat of the marketplace in the nonprofit sector. Is kind of that middle part of the right. But the typical profile, regardless of size and type, and it's an organization that has a vision and is seeking help to kind of turn that vision into reality. You know, and what we do is we come alongside. We kind of have a basic three-part model, which is assess, plan, deliver results. We kind of come in and we kind of figure out, okay, what's the lay of the land here? You know what you want, and we can help guide that planning. We do strategic planning, but once that plan is in place, it's like, okay, let's look at what are the gaps, what are the things that are going well, what are the things that you got to put in place, what are the things that you got to invest into, how can we map out, right, getting to where you want to go. And a lot of times that's talent and resources, right? A lot of times that's the path, right? And so we come alongside and kind of help do that. And so large to small, whether it's, we've got a division of the company. We just acquired a company in Dallas called Cargill Associates, that focuses on churches. And so we've got a division of the company now that's working with churches. And some of these are small little churches, and some of them, but it's the same basic thing, And when I started when I was starting my firm originally, a friend of mine who I was working with in Durham, North Carolina, I was working on a capital campaign there for a rescue mission. And Mike was on the board, and he happened to be the chief advancement officer for Duke University, right? And at the time, we were working on a $7 million campaign for this rescue mission. He was working on a $700 million campaign at Duke, right? And what was interesting, though, was that it was, a lot of the same principles applied. It was just a matter of where you put the decimal point, right? But it was a lot of the same principles that apply. And so in a lot of these cases, it's those principles, it's getting some of those basic fundamentals in place and executing well and having a good plan, and, having a culture that supports that, and having the people and working it, regardless if you're a small, right, grassroots community organization, or if you're a big global multinational, ministry organization or nonprofit, right? So we kind of, that's kind of the core of it.
I would imagine that model lends to a longer term engagement, right? Where you're working kind of big issues and finding gaps and making constant improvements to the overall fundraising operation through other parts of the org.
It is, and I think there was a shift that we did as a company back in I guess it was 2018 or so. Prior to that, we were structured as kind of a typical kind of consulting group where you had people who joined the team, but they were basically responsible for kind of building their own book of business. It was kind of eat what you kill. The company gets a percentage, and the consultant. That's a typical model, right, in consulting. And all I had a real vision that in order to really achieve our mission, to do what we want to do, we have to transition from being what I often reference as a group of consultants to a true consulting group, right? Because we have experts in all these different areas, but if all they're interested in is like they sell their book of business, they're doing their client, they're not interested in the bigger picture of how to help the organization. And so we made a pretty significant shift and said, we're going to abandon the 1099 kind of consultant, percentage model, and we're going all in with a salary-based model, W-2 with our consultant, with our team. And really started to push towards integration and really helping more holistically. And so we do now have more and more clients where we're doing multiple things on multiple different tracks, right? Where we're helping them strategize, we're helping them on fundraising, we're helping them with talent solutions, we're helping them, in a lot of different areas. And so it's good for business, but it's good for the client as well. What I find in the industry is more and more clients want kind of to consolidate the partners that they're working with, because you got so many different competing interests, and they're right. Our whole model is based on, we don't want our financial interest to be contrary to the client, right? So on the direct marketing side, direct mail side, right? We don't mark up any of the mail that we do, right? Because we don't want to be incentivized to sell more mail to the client, right? What we're doing is, you're going to pay us for our counsel, for our advice, for the things that we do. We're going to look at your whole kind of value chain of fundraising, right? So we don't make all of our money on mail markup, on production, right? We outsource production, actually. We don't want to be tied to a big production. We don't want a big print house and mail shop and all of that stuff. Even though there's money to be made in that, right? We have partners that work with us on that. That's what they do. They do it extremely well. So we can go to the client and say, we're going to give you the best advice of where to put the next dollar, where to invest. What's the next best investment, right? Our interest isn't sell you something that we're going to make money on, because we've got a broad range of things that we can help you with. We want to look at your situation, look at what's your next best investment. You got $1 to invest somewhere in growth, or what's the best place to put that dollar to get the best ROI and to achieve your strategic goals.
Yeah. Well, I really applaud you, Derric, for taking that leap, right, to a fundamentally different business model. I think that at the end of the day, as an organization, when you can differentiate yourself on the fundamental business model that you are presenting to a client, and present it in a way where you are aligning the interests of the client and your organization, then it really allows you to stand out. And I think folks get surprised sometimes when they actually understand the underlying business models of these industries and organizations that they've been working with for a long time, and have kind of a fundamentally different approach can really help you stand out.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for that. And part of the reason I do is because I feel like we're doing the same thing in direct
Right.
mail, right? Where
Yeah.
we don't own iron, right?
Yeah.
That we need to feed, right, in
Right.
order to pay off the lease to HP or
Yeah.
whomever, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
we're a software company that is focused on success, right, for our customers, and with success we become successful, and so having that kind of fundamentally different approach to a market can really pay off.
Yep.
That's wonderful. Um, and I'm really curious. I saw that you guys have a new study that you've just come out with, the
We do.
2024 Nonprofit Leaders Study.
Yep.
Uh, would love to dig in, give our audience here maybe a little taste, a little preview of what this is about, and then we could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we do a lot of research at DickersonBakker. We do research in a lot of different ways, and so we want to understand where the industry's going. We want to understand kind of new trends. We want to understand what donors are thinking, and so I always say, I've worked a long time in major giving, and people will say, well, what are donors thinking about this, or what are donors thinking about that? And I said, well, ask them, right? If you want to know what they're thinking, ask them, right? And so either sit down and talk to them, or survey them, or do a research study or something. But don't ask me. Let's ask your donors, because I can tell you what the donors that I meet with are saying, but that doesn't mean that your donors are saying the same thing. And when you're dealing in mass, right, you can look at statistical samples and draw a lot from that. But when you're dealing in major giving, right, one person or two people or 10 people can make a huge difference, right? So it's like, okay, talk to your big donors, talk to the folks that are giving, right, a significant amount of money, or who have the capacity to give a significant amount of money, and ask them, right, why do they support you? What is it that about your organization and your mission that is attractive to them, and that they're they decide of all the different places that they could choose. And so it's really, I've always had kind of an evidence-based approach, right? But we do 2 studies a year, two that we do for the company. We do a lot of research for clients, so we'll do a lot of what we do in the assessment phase of our work with clients is research study. We do donor perceptual studies and data analytics, and we do major donor interviews and all kinds of different stuff. But we do a couple of things. A couple of times, we'll typically do a study for the company, and we do one focused on donors, and we do one focused on nonprofit leaders. And so we just completed a nonprofit leaders study, which we've just kind of released the report. So the timing of this is good, and the study's available on our website at DickersonBakker.com, and I'm sure we can post that alongside the notes. But first thing I want to do is just give credit to our research partner, that's Arbor Research Group. So Arbor Research Group, Terry Linhart is the Dr. Linhart is kind of the principal there. So they do a lot of the, we don't employ a researchist on staff. We kind of come up with the research we want to do and what we want to study, and then we find a research partner. And Arbor Research Group has been a great research partner, and they helped us with this study. But this particular study, was kind of a part 2 of a study that we launched last year. And it wasn't intentional. So the study that we launched last year really looked at what are some of the trends in industry, talking to nonprofit leaders. And we titled that study, once we got the research, we titled that study "Stuck in a Paradox." Because what we discovered in that study was there's this big gap between, oftentimes it's the folks that are working frontline in organizations, or really, the folks that are the staff in the organization, that have this real strong desire for change. They see the need for change. And, you work in the direct mail business. I mean, when you look at fundraising technology, how technology is just completely changing the landscape of fundraising. But not just that, COVID changed the landscape of fundraising tremendously as well, particularly on the major gift side. And so there's just this really strong need for change in nonprofit organizations. And there's a strong desire for change, but it ain't happening, right? It just isn't happening, at least not at the pace it needs to happen. And so you've got kind of this paradox where people who work in the industry want change, but they can't seem to get it to happen. Even leadership wants change, right? But there's just obstacles. So this particular study, we said, let's dig into what's holding this back? What are these obstacles? What are these obstacles to change? Because if we can kind of break through those challenges, and get the pace of change and innovation happening on the nonprofit side at a higher pace, that'll help kind of organizations do a better job, work more efficiently and more effectively, and make a bigger impact. And so that was kind of the nature of the study. That's why we did it. And so that's we can talk a little bit more about the findings of that.
Yeah, yeah. That is really interesting, and I think it's consistent with some of the things that we've seen in our investment into the nonprofit tech stack. We are telling the industry, hey, this workflow that you've been doing the same way for the last 30 years with email and spreadsheets, you can do much better
Right.
than this. And we see it registers. People like, yes, absolutely. But the actual implementation of that is more challenging, right? And
Yeah.
so there's something there that's friction of some sort. What did you guys find? What any key tips that you can identify here?
Yeah, I mean, there were three kind of really key things that most folks said are standing in the way, and one of them is just staffing, right? Just really significant staffing challenges, and so burnout is a big part of that. What we really found is that in most organizations, there's this kind of endemic of not enough staff, not enough qualified staff, turnover of staff, Every time you take a couple of steps forward, you have a turnover of staff or somebody leaves, and all of a sudden you step back. It takes a long time to find the next person to fill that. And a lot of it is, okay, then that next person has a different way they want to go, a different thing they want to do, right? It's not so much an organizational staff strategy as, the individual leader strategy or what they want to do. A lot of times they don't hire to the strategy, they hire to the person's skills. And of course, the person's going to go the direction that their skills, they're going to do it, right? And so, staffing was a huge piece of the puzzle, and so but particularly kind of burnout and organizations not investing in their staff, not not paying enough. Frankly, I mean, that was a biggie. A lot of staff leaving the industry altogether, and so that was one of the biggest. Second, which is linked, is scarcity of resources, right? Scarcity of resources is a big piece of it, and frankly, there's so much money in the nonprofit sector is coming from third-party sources like government grants and state and everything else, and then on top of that, whether that's institutional grants or foundation grants. And these organizations, and so much of it is, is this idea in the industry that we can't reinvest back into the organization, right? Like, you see these nonprofit leaders so often, they wear it like a badge of honor that only 12% of our resources go back into our, 88%, 90% go out into the field. Well, you're starving your people, right? You're starving your staff. And, and then that becomes the thing, like, well, that must be the norm. That must be Simon, I think it was Simon Sinek, had talked about kind of changing that paradigm. I think it was Simon Sinek, might be another, was on a TED Talk, but really changing the paradigm of what is an appropriate amount to reinvest back into your organization, right? I mean, businesses, right? If you look at, I'm a fan of Shark Tank, right? And you look at Shark Tank, it's like, okay, how much, right? What's your gross profit on sales? Like, what's your cost of goods? Oh, your cost of goods is 40%, right? And so that means you're keeping 60% back in the organization. If we ever did that on the nonprofit side, people would be like, what? And it's like, the reality is, you've got to invest in your people. You've got to invest in, right, sustainability. Even though we're not trying to make big profits, you've got to be able to reinvest back into the people in the organization. And so some of those kind of overhead costs, which we in the industry seem to think are toxic, are critical, right? Investing in overhead. I don't even like the word overhead because it's just a bad, right? It's investing in capacity. It's investing in your people. It's investing in the future of your organization to help you do things more effectively and more efficiently. And so,
especially if you have some sort of growth vision, right?
Right.
Like, how are you going to grow?
Right.
How do you grow without investing in the core architecture of your organization?
Right.
You can't. You literally cannot, unless you are plowing resources into developing the capabilities of the people that are executing on a vision.
Yep. We presented a proposal to a board the other day that I didn't present, but one of our team presented. And basically, it was a pretty significant plan that they have for expansion and growth and capital and, construction, things like that. It was pretty decent sized price tag, right? And then we put kind of a budget. We put a plan. The plan had a budget, and they completely balked at the budget, right? They were like, total sticker shock, And it was like, guys, that's 9 cents on the dollar. Right? 9 cents to raise a dollar, right? So basically we're saying, you invest this, right? Like, who wouldn't put a dime in a machine, pull the handle and get a dollar out, right? But they were so focused on the 9 cents, like, because of the big number that 9 cents represented, right? That it was, it was like, most of these guys are business guys. If I'm coming at them on a business venture and saying, hey, you can invest 10 cents here and you're going to generate a dollar's worth of revenue or a dollar's worth of, right, but they're so focused on the cost and not the ROI and not the return and the near term cost, the immediate cost. And that's the other thing. It's kind of a kind of short term thinking. Hey, we have to, how are we going to cover this now?
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Well, and that's actually, I think, could be a whole nother topic, right? For us to dive into is what can be done to help educate the boards of
right,
nonprofits, right? To you know think of these things as something other than cost centers that
right,
just funnel money in and funnel money out, right,
yeah,
as
right,
efficiently as possible.
yep, yep,
Very interesting. Last question before we leave. This is a podcast about omnichannel marketing and about how direct mail works with other marketing channels, and how automation can assist in the whole process. So, what have you found at Dickerson Bakker, and what are your thoughts, and how are you advising your clients on the whole omnichannel marketing strategy?
yeah. Well, I hinted at this early in our discussion, where I was talking about kind of the change we made back in 2021 to launch a direct response fundraising division, and some of that was a business reality. Some of that was related to just as a firm that did primarily focused on major gift consulting, we were getting a lot of our referrals and a lot of our business development through other agencies, right? That would say, hey, we got a client that needs this, you guys provide this. And so what we were finding was that those swim lanes were coming out of the pool a little bit. More and more agencies were kind of trying to take that service in-house. But also we just recognized that the current model for fundraising, I believe, is broken. The traditional model for fundraising is broken. And what we really decided to do was we need to work with our clients holistically and look at that whole value chain, because too many direct mail agencies are so focused on just selling mail, right, and selling high volume mail, because that's kind of how they make their dollar. One of the things that was, I think, really it has been overlooked, but it's something that was very significant that happened in 2020 with COVID. Fundraising on the direct mail side could keep plugging along for the most part. Now you had supply chain shortages and other things that kind of put a kink in that. But, we have in the major gift side of the world always worked under this basic kind of, what I'll call a myth, that the only way you can raise big dollars is eyeball to eyeball, right? Across the table, right? You got to meet, you got to see the people, right? It's the rule of 3 C's in major gift fundraising: see the people, see the people, see the people. Right. And what we realized during COVID was we couldn't do that. Right. You couldn't go out and visit people. And, what became, and we had kind of this, I think, this convergence of COVID kind of forcing kind of the issue, but also a lot of technologies, technological change that really opened up the door to say, what, major gift fundraising does not need to be one-to-one. There's very effective ways to do this one-to-many, utilizing technology. And what we're seeing in the industry is that the ROI on fundraising is really declining, and part of that is that a lot of money is being spent on kind of low dollar giving, when in fact, if you look at the trends in giving, more and more of giving, like the total amount of money being given in this country has been relatively steady and growing. But right, the number of donors who are giving every year has been shrinking relatively dramatically. There's a lot of different reasons about that, which we've written about and blogged about and talked about, that we won't get into today. But it's the reality of the industry, right? And so acquisition is becoming much harder through using traditional means. People aren't opening the mail like they used to. They're not kind of falling for the same gimmicks, so to speak, because it's a different population, right? It's not. You're talking to folks who are higher net worth, more sophisticated in their giving, less, right, who tend to be a little more discerning, and so the whole approach to it. But the idea, basically, what we launched our kind of direct response fundraising based on the underlying kind of tagline of treat every donor like a major donor. Okay, so we treat major donors in a certain way, different from mass donors or mainstream donors, not because mainstream donors don't want to be treated that way. It's because we haven't been able to do it in the past. If you have 10,000 donors, you can't send somebody out and have coffee with every single one, right? But what is it they want? They want personalization, right? They want to be heard. They want to be known. They want two-way communication. They want all things that technology has really allowed us to do. And so what we're really looking at is saying, okay, through mass personalization techniques, through a lot of different ways, can we really kind of begin to utilize a lot of direct mail and omni-channel fundraising methodology, but not so much on the small dollar kind of mass market, but really focusing on, okay, how do we apply a lot of those technologies, a lot of those techniques, a lot of those approaches to kind of this audience, mid and major gift audience, with some changes in messaging, with some changes in approach, but basically applying a lot of those same basic things. And it's been highly successful. In the 2 or 3 years since we've launched this, it's just taken off just tremendously. And the marketplace is resonating with this, because what we're hearing, we pitch to, we're winning business that we have no business winning as an upstart in this industry, right? So we've been around 40 years, but our direct response has been kind of an upstart thing since 2021, 2022. We started planning it in 21. We launched it in 22, and launched it with recruited Andrew Olson, who's I think fairly well known in the industry, to be kind of the head of this and to help do this. And again, that goes back to the talent thing, right? I wouldn't have launched it without the right talent. And so when Andrew's been a friend for 10 years, and when I was able to recruit him to come over and we shared this vision, and so he's at the helm of it, because I'm a major gift guy. He knows this stuff incredibly well. It's part of how I lead, right? Find good people and kind of let them do their thing. But
Right.
The marketplace has been just resonating like crazy. We pitched to one organization where we got in late to the RFP. We actually got in after the RFP had closed, and they were like, "No, guys, come in. We want to hear from you." They pretty much had proposals from a lot of other folks at that point. Very large, national, well-known organization, sends millions of pieces of mail a year, but they were just really kind of not happy with what they were getting. Right? They had a firm that they had been using for 40 years, and it was just time for a change. And they put out an RFP, got a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of responses in. Well, we got a call back from them, and we happened to be in town. They're based in DC. Andrew and I happened to be in DC on other business, and they were like, "Hey, Andrew's like, hey, we're right here. Want to come to the office?" So we went to the office. We sat down with them, and they were like, they showed us this pile of proposals on the desk, and ours was on top, so I couldn't see who else was on it. But it was a big stack of proposals, right? I mean, it was probably close to a dozen different proposals, each one like this thick. And the guy said to us, he said, there's in that whole stack, everybody else was a different flavor of vanilla. You guys were the only ones offering us kind of a different approach, a new approach, and where we see things going, you guys were the only one to really speak to that. And even though, right, and you guys are fairly new, but we've partnered with some really significant players in the industry on the production side, the mailhouse side, the data side, that right, we can tap into all of that. And they were already using, that one of those partners pretty extensively. So they were comfortable in saying, hey, you guys come in and give us the counsel, the creative, strategy, the approach, but they're going to continue to execute on the production and on the mailhouse side. And so it's kind of a perfect sort of scenario. But that's I think the application here is to say, okay, how do we start to take a lot of those kind of mass market approaches and begin to focus them on higher value donors where the industry is going? It's challenging to do. And I think the reason we can do it is because we are a major gift firm, right? And so we've kind of applied the direct response, on top of it, as opposed to I think it's harder for a direct response firm to try to figure out major donors, because they just, right, all they want to do is they want to hire somebody to just like provide once a week coaching or once a month coaching, right? They'll say, hey, we've got a major guest specialist who we can give you for an hour a month on a coaching call or something. And it's just not going to do what, you need it to do.
And it again, it's boiling down to the change you've made in your business model, right? Like,
Right.
you're coming at this from a fresh perspective without an underlying conflict, right,
Right.
in what you're presenting. And so, you know, you're looking at this through a fresh lens, whereas a lot of other folks are looking at it through the lens of their work for the last 40 years.
Right.
And
Yeah,
and
we're able
so
to take a clean sheet of paper and say, how do we want to construct a fundraising agency that is designed for the future of fundraising?
right, right. Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah,
big
that's
advantage.
and on the direct mail side, one of the things that we are out there pounding the table on is, this idea that direct mail is not artillery fire, that you're laying down and just splattering all over the place, but it's a surgical instrument
Exactly.
that that if you've got the data, then there's no reason why you cannot be precisely personalizing at scale to large groups of people,
Right.
uh, but to give them an experience that is different and unique based on a wide variety of data sources that are available. And so there's really there's no need for the sort of outdated expectations around batching and production cycles at printers and all of those economics that kind of force the way the direct mail has traditionally been deployed. Like, technology can remove all of that,
Right.
so you can use direct mail like you would use email or a digital platform to, present 100% unique experiences. And so I certainly
100%.
applaud your approach here.
Well, and I would leave on one thing too and say that if there's one takeaway, particularly if you're a nonprofit leader listening to this episode today, there's one thing to take away from this, and it's when we go back to what the study talked about, the scarcity of resources, one of the biggest frustrations was the unwillingness or inability of organizations to make appropriate level of investment in technology. And when we talk about what you just said, right, about mass personalization is not just about getting the first and last name right, right? I mean, it's really about integrating into your communications data and information that you have on your donors and what their interests are, what they're right, all kinds of different stuff that you can kind of interlay into these communications that feels very personalized to them and very individualized to them. It means cutting back on a lot of the fluff, right? The stuff that we've used in the past that's gimmicky and stuff, and saying all the visuals and saying, we created this just for you, right? And this is why, like in emails, for instance, more and more emails are just getting down to basic text, getting rid of all the HTML and the graphics and everything, because it's like, I'm writing to you, right? And I'm referencing something in here to prove it, right? And I'm speaking back to something, or you're giving to something, or a meeting that you had or something, and I'm following up on that. The key to doing all of that successfully is data. And so our biggest challenge as we implement this with clients is the integrity of their data source, right?
Mm.
And so that investment, where the fundraising industry needs to go, right, is we need to be focusing on en masse, on higher level, higher value giving, which means more personalization, which means more and more data into your database. One of the things we do a lot of donor surveys for clients, and we encourage them. We say, listen, don't just take this survey information in the aggregate. Get those survey responses into the donor record, right? So when you ask them a question, what are their preferences, right? What are their giving preferences? What's this? What's that, right? A client will take that back and say, oh, that's interesting. 62% of our donors prefer this or prefer that. And they put it on the shelf, and that's interesting for them. And now all of a sudden they're en masse sending according to the preferences of 62%, but they're not realizing that 38% prefer something different. And if you can just take the individual responses from that survey, get it into your individual donor records, and then begin to target folks and begin to communicate with folks and approach folks in a way that's really fits what their preferences are. Not, okay, this is what the majority of people said, therefore everybody gets this, one size fits all. But to do that, you have to have the underlying data systems, and that's investment in technology and systems, but that's also investment in people to manage it and to keep that data clean and to make sure that, because what ends up happening is like, we may create something, a communication that has all kinds of this variable data built in, and then they're like, oh, we're not sure that this is going to be right. We're not sure it's going to be right, and there's going to be mistakes. So let's just cut it all out, and all of a sudden it's mass again because the data is not clean, right? And so I cannot emphasize enough for the future of fundraising to invest in technology and smart people who know how to run that technology and partners who can help you do that. So.
Well, we are 100% aligned along those key takeaways, Derric. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for what you're doing in the industry. It's a fresh approach. I'm thrilled that you and the firm are out there pounding the table on these important messages. And I look forward to seeing the continued success of DickersonBakker over the next several years. So everybody, check out Derric Bakker, DickersonBakker. And Derric, where can the audience connect with you?
DickersonBakker.com. Just go to our website at DickersonBakker.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, but DickersonBakker, but Baker has 2 Ks. So all one word, DickersonBakker.com. And I think you'll probably put the link on when you send out links to this. So I appreciate that. But it's great being with you, Dennis. I've enjoyed our conversation. And so great to visit with you and have this wish the best for the audience. And thanks again.
All right. Derric Bakker, DickersonBakker, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Print to Pixel, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.